A nation in distress. Let's get dialed in. Our nation is in crisis. You feel it. You know it. We are living Paul Harvey's If I Were the Devil right now. Many of us look to our church leaders for direction. Silence. We look to our elected officials who are supposed to represent us. Silence. We look to our neighbors and to our friends. Silence. Pop culture tells us to love, using its own bastardized moral relativist definition of that word, and to cease fighting. My friends, we are in the midst of a spiritual war, and I submit to you the only reasonable course of action is for us to put on the armor of God and fight. We fight with truth, and the truth, make no mistake, is under attack. The Democrat Party has been overtaken by cultural Marxists, and far too many Republicans cave to their demands, offering us little to no resistance from their insanity. Through it all, President Trump has remained steadfast in his commitment to preserving an America that we might still recognize with our grandchildren. But is it enough? And how can we ensure victory in the face of unparalleled evil and corruption? My guest tonight will share his thoughts. Well, you know him as the liberty-loving Latino, and you can catch him on the Chris Salcedo Show on Newsmax every weekday from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock Central. Joining me now is the one and only Chris Salcedo. Chris, welcome to Texas Talkin'.
Shiloh, nice to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Well, thank you for joining us. And I want to ask you about this presidential election, Chris. You know, they tried the Russia hoax. They tried the COVID scam. They railroaded the 2020 election. They tried the kangaroo courts and the doctored up criminal charges. And then they even tried to kill him. And yet, Donald Trump does not back down. My question to you, sir, is what does he need to do to win?
Well, it's a rather complex question. If you ask all the pundits, I've been getting a lot of email, and I'm wondering. I think it's because so many people are nervous about this election. They've been telling me to tell Trump, as if I have a direct line to President Trump. Tell him this, tell him that, tell him to stop using all the names, tell him to stop referring to Kamala Harris as whatever he's calling her that particular day. Just stick to the issues. And it's like, wait a minute. President Trump isn't a politician. President Trump got to where he is by being real and genuine. Yes. He's not trying to put on airs for anybody. He's just trying to say, look, I'm America first. I want to make America great again. I know how to do it because I had a successful 4-year run. If I were giving President Trump some advice, is, man, first off, be you and remind everybody how much better life was under the Trump administration than it is under the Biden regime.
And timely that you say that, because the first tweet that he put out, or I guess X post that he had put out in a long time today, was exactly that. Are you better off now than you were when I was president? Is essentially what he posted.
And it's true. And it's, he actually put out a very powerful ad. Not sure if you saw it. It was with Ronald Reagan. And the campaign says, now a couple of words from Ronald Reagan. And he gets up there and asks his famous question. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And Reagan says, well, if you're not, I would recommend an alternative. And then it cuts right to President Trump saying, hey, I want to make America great again. Anything wrong with that? The Democrats have a problem with it, but most Americans don't. As long as you talk to Americans where they live, the economy, crime, security, I think he's going to be able to get the majority of the American people behind him.
And I think this woke virus that's going around in not only the United States, but also the world speaks to a much larger issue. Chris, do you believe we're in a spiritual war right now? And if so, how do we go about fighting it?
I think we've always been in a spiritual war. There's always been that struggle between good and evil in ourselves and in the society writ large. In the United States, we have always been on the side, our society anyway, have been on the side of good. We've always thought about being a good and righteous people. And that outlook now is being denigrated in the pop culture openly. I have never seen conservatives and Christians being targeted in the popular culture as I am now, where they're talking about the things we espouse and the things that we believe in, the nuclear family, the
The
idea of
fabric of our culture.
yes, the that is the foundation of Western civilization is a nuclear family. So give the left credit for knowing where to attack to bring down Western civilization. They know to attack the nuclear family. If we had only recognized that we should be protecting it as vehemently as they are attacking it. So there's that. There's also the freedom to worship as we choose, which was under attack during the China virus pandemic. Out there in the People's Republic of California, we had Governor Gavin Newsom who was saying, "Well, if you gather with 100 people in a religious ceremony, that's not allowed. But if you gather with 100 people doing business, I guess that's going to be okay." And they were showing us who they were. And sadly, you just have this cabal of entrenched individuals in the government, entrenched individuals in media and the press who have decided no, they're not going to broker any other compromise. They're just going for the gusto. And sadly, people of faith and of values are in their way.
You just used a word that I really want to key in on, and that is cabal. Every 4 years, every 4 years we hear the same trope. This is the most important election of our lifetime. This is the most important election in history. Well, Chris, I'm convinced that this, in fact, is the most important election, at least in my lifetime. And that is because the cultural and globalist Marxists seek our destruction. I firmly believe that. And Donald Trump, thus far, is the only president we've had who has taken this threat seriously. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think he's the only president in the modern era who takes this threat seriously. I think Reagan took it
Yes.
seriously. I think maybe Kennedy took it seriously. Maybe one of the last, maybe the last Democrat to give a damn about keeping American autonomy, pushing back on money interests and woke interests. And those, Shiloh, the way I break it down is if you look at our politics, worldwide politics in general, it's broken down between two camps. Those individuals who want to use the power of government to tell us what to do, and those of us who don't want to be told what to do. And whether you classify us as individuals who believe in a government of, by, and for the people, the vision of the foundational principles of conservatism, whatever you want to call us, I think when you're looking at the struggle between good and evil that we were already referencing, at the end of the day, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at those who wish to rob you of your autonomy, rob you of your self-governance, and then institute this, for lack of a better term, their view of a utopian society. It's not our view. That's why I was struggling, because you can't call it a utopian society because it's very much a nightmare. But the worldwide left is now committed to making sure this happens, that self-governance is gone and that the entire world serves them and their interests and their enrichment and their comfort. And it's a very scary time to be alive because the United States used to be the country leading the charge against that kind of thing. And we're no longer that.
And there's nowhere else to go. And I think that's what scares so many people. The way I always put it is it's the ruling elite, the uniparty, if you will, versus the rest of us. They seek to do exactly what you said. They want us to essentially worship government and remove any form of personal liberty that we currently have.
True. And if you look around, you saw the opening ceremonies to the Olympics, what they did.
Yes.
They targeted Christianity. They've targeted the Catholic Church. We have, being a practicing Catholic, I can affirm we have a Pope who is very much a devotee to communism, very much a devotee to Marxism. So he is willing to sacrifice the faith, in my view, and Christ's teachings on earth in service to this communistic collectivist mindset. And it's not just in our government. It seems to be a worldwide push, a rise of, frankly, good and evil. You can see the chess pieces moving on the board. It's crazy, but it's happening.
And it's never been so apparent, in my view, at least in my lifetime. I want to focus our conversation for a few minutes on a more local level to Texas politics. What do you view as the most serious challenge facing our state at the present moment?
Dade Phelan.
I, could, I couldn't agree with you more. And
Dade Phelan. Yeah.
so succinct, perfect. That actually leads to my next question, which is about none other than Dade Phelan. So, as you and I both know, he won re-election enlisting the help of his Democrat friends by a razor-thin margin. I invested countless hours of my time and talent working toward a Covey win that we unfortunately didn't get. Do you think Phelan holds on to the speaker's gavel?
I was just discussing this with my friends over at Texas Scorecard. I was under the impression it could go either way. Here's the scenario that I think that it could play out. That Speaker Dade Phelan says, well, cat's out of the bag now. I mean, I might as well just go for broke.
Yeah.
Might as well declare myself to be a Democrat speaker. And he will, with the help of the Charlie Gerons of the world, the Dustin Burrows of the world, the real left-wingers who call themselves Republicans, the diehards, there'll be just enough of them and all the Democrats to make him speaker and just say, guess what? We're going to burn it all down. That could very well happen. And then, of course, you would have, then if that's the course, then there would be no obligation for the lieutenant governor of the Senate to work with him whatsoever. There'd be no motivation for Governor Greg Abbott to work with him whatsoever, because frankly, with that declaration, if Dade Phelan says he gets elected as a speaker with a majority Democrat votes, and just picking off a couple of these left-wing Republicans, that's going to be the last time he'll be speaker. And those Republicans who sided with him are signing up already for primary challenges. So if they think that this is the last push and they've got to make sure, maybe they think they can tip Texas blue, maybe they can flip the legislature they have in their mind, that they can go all Democrat and they'll all switch the party they really love. Charlie Geron is really a Democrat. Dade Phelan is really a Democrat. These individuals who have been inside of Dade Phelan's pocket has 15 of them lost their gigs.
Yes.
And they're gone. But there's still a significant, if I can use the word again, cabal inside of the Texas House that are more devoted to Democrats and Dade Phelan than they are to their own voters. And if those folks aren't sufficiently marginalized, then I think that we're going to have some serious problems. The other way this could go is folks are going to be invested in keeping up the illusion that Republicans are actually in charge of the Texas House. And they're going to insist that Dade Phelan step aside and that the caucus not only pick its speaker, but the caucus also appoint only, the new speaker
chairs.
only appoint Republican chairmen to represent these powerful committees in government, and box the Democrats out, which is only appropriate, which they did all the way up until the 1970s. They had one Republican in 1970. There was a chair inside of a Democrat-controlled House, and that's what Dade Phelan calls a tradition. It's a tradition. 1970 is not a tradition. It's not the founding of Texas that it dates back to. It's complete sophistry, and it's been Dade Phelan and these left-wingers' excuse to allow the Democrats to rule in the Republicans' name.
And just because something may or may not be a tradition does not mean that it's right. So which way do you think it's going to go?
I don't know. It all depends. It all depends on which way. If Dade Phelan wants, I know that I shouldn't say this because I'm talking out of turn. Some individuals have shared with me that some of the moneyed interests are going, wait a minute, we've got now the conservatives that are dominating inside the Texas legislature. We may have nobody with a Republican name that's going to represent our left-wing interests, which we've been putting into the legislature with some of these fake Republicans. So now they're starting to try to buy off some of these incumbent conservatives. They're investing in some of their fundraising efforts. And that's an effort to buy some influence at the table with some of these staunch conservatives. I'm hearing it's not working, that they're getting coached very well. They're being told, hey, look, this money, they're going to try to put strings attached to it. Just don't commit to anything. Just say, yeah, you're donating to me. I'm a conservative. Remember, I'm going to do in the legislature what I am supposed to do as a conservative. And there are no strings. I'm not going to take, if you want something left wing done, tough, ain't going to happen. So that or gal, because there's some of the conservative ladies coming in. So There you go. Like I said, I think it all depends on what Dade Phelan really wants. If he's going to go for broke, and basically, and I hope he does. I really hope he wins, so we can ferret out the other Republicans who support him. I really do, because there would be no greater declaration of we're for the Democrats, we're for Dade Phelan, than to see the ones that would cross the aisle, Shiloh, to put him over the top, to all Democrats and a certain number of
10
Republicans.
or 11 Republicans.
Exactly. They
Yep.
would all sign up for primary challengers, make my job, your job, a hell of a lot easier.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. He has this cadre of loyalists who will follow him off of a cliff. But I think that they'll learn a very hard lesson if they do that this time, because as you already mentioned, 15 already lost re-election. And I haven't seen any indication, Chris, thus far from Dade Phelan, from anything he's put out publicly, that he learned any lessons from this past primary season. And so I just feel like he's not going to reverse course in any way. I could be wrong, but that's what my gut tells me.
Well, he's a Democrat, and that's how they think. They're entitled to power. They're entitled to rule. So, yeah, I mean, he strikes me very much as an arrogant guy. I got away with it. Is in his mind.
Yep.
They came after me. They threw everything, and granted, they threw everything they could. Ken Paxton, all of us, and he survived with the help of his Democrat friends.
Yep.
Of course, if he is speaker again, we're going to be going through these processes to close the primary. There won't be anything to save him next time. So he may have delayed Judgment Day. It all depends on what that little, as you put it, cadre of individuals tells him. If they're willing to, Charlie Guerin's getting up there. I think he might be, willing to hang up his cleats and, give one more for the leftist team to really stick it to Texas before he heads for the exits. So it all depends on what they want to do. If they want to burn down the next legislative session, they might. It'll be a stalemate because we got the governor's mansion and we've got the Senate. So it'll be the best they're going to be able to do is a stalemate.
And I think yeah, and I think in the meantime, it's the job of guys like you and I to ensure that we're informing the public all along the way of every mistake that Dade Phelan makes if he chooses to go that route. Because part of the problem that I witnessed firsthand in District 21 as I was out block walking and campaigning for David Covey is not so much loyalty to Dade Phelan, but really apathy. And this is probably a problem that most districts face. It's apathy because of either indifference or not knowing exactly what's going on in the Texas legislature. People just see that Southeast Texas has the speaker. They assume he brings all these resources and all this money to Southeast Texas, or they just don't care. They see a name they recognize. And I tell people all the time, you might not take an interest in politics, but politics most definitely takes an interest in you and your children, whether you give it permission to or not.
Right. And most of them are geared now to doing exactly what you're describing, sidelining the will of the people. It seems to be secondary or tertiary inside of these politicians' minds. They really don't care what the people think. They're going to do what's best for them and theirs, and then to hell with the rest of us. And this is the problem. And I think that Reagan said it best when he said, freedom isn't something that's in the bloodstream. We don't inherit it. It's got to be defended again and again and then again. And I think Texans ought to be aware of a couple of things. First off, we have a lot of people moving here from blue states, escaping the tyranny of those blue states, and they don't change their voting habits once they get here. They keep on, gee, I wonder why my old
Why did I have to flee?
Yeah, well, I went to hell in a handbasket. Oh, I'm just going to keep on voting Democrat and things will be different here because it's Texas. No, it won't be. So those who are here have got to remain committed to defending what we've got, or we're going to lose it.
Well, folks, you can catch Chris Salcedo on Newsmax weekdays, Monday through Friday, from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock Central. Chris, I want to thank you for taking time to come on and talk to us tonight.
No worries, brother. It's been a pleasure to be here. Next time you invite me, just call. I'll be right back.
I would love that. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great state of Texas. Stay dialed in to interviews and content just like this by clicking that follow button on my Facebook page, or hit the subscribe button to learn more about exclusive access that you won't want to miss.